You shared some really thought-provoking material with us, and right away, the expectancy-value theory just popped out. It seems like such a powerful way to understand, why we even bother trying to achieve things in the first place, and how our core beliefs and what we value really shape that drive. So let's jump right into this deep dive into achievement motivation, specifically looking through the lens of Alan Wigfield's work on, well, this expectancy value theory.
It's good.
Our goal today is to really get a handle on the factors that influence why we aim for certain things, especially from a developmental perspective, how these things change within us, and maybe stumble upon some unexpected insights into how these drivers shift as we grow up.
Yeah.
You said that some fascinating sources, and this theory really stood out as like a framework for understanding why we pursue certain goals and activities. Let's unpack this.
Okay. What's fascinating right off the bat is the central idea, right? The expectancy value theory.
Yeah.
It says our motivation to engage with the task boils down to two critical questions we implicitly ask ourselves. First, can I succeed at this? That's our expectancy for success.
Okay.
And second, do I care about succeeding at this? That's the value we place on that success. Now, this wasn't born in a vacuum. Way back, 1957, Atkinson laid some groundwork. He looked at expectancy as our anticipation of either hitting the mark or falling short, and value as, how appealing that success or failure felt to us.
Right, so a pretty fundamental starting point. But it sounds like as researchers dug deeper, they realized that both expectancy and value are, well, much richer than those initial definitions.
Exactly.
People like Eccles and Wigfield, they really took this further, considering not just basic ideas, but more nuanced aspects like our personal feelings about tasks and like a wider array of beliefs influencing motivation.
Absolutely. And Eccles et al.'s model from '83, it gives us a really useful structure, especially for understanding achievement and choices young people make, particularly in subjects like math. Their model basically says that what we actually do, our performance, how much we stick with something, is most directly driven by how much we expect to succeed and how much we subjectively value that success.
Like a web, pulling it all together.
Yeah, think of it like a web where your beliefs about yourself and what you care about all pull together to decide what you actually do.
Okay, so expectancy and value are the direct engines of our achievement behaviors. But what fuels those engines? What are the underlying factors shaping our expectancies and the value we place on things?
Right. Here's where it gets really interesting. According to the model, a few key ingredients go into that mix. These include our broader achievement goals, think aspirations, standards we hold ourselves to, our self-schemata, which is essentially how we see ourselves.
Our self-concept.
Yeah, exactly. And then more specific beliefs tied to particular tasks. These task-specific beliefs involve how we rate our own ability or competence in an area, and also how tough we think a task will be. Though it's worth noting that perceived task difficulty hasn't consistently shown up as a strong predictor in the research.
It's unsurprising. Why do you think that might be? I mean, wouldn't harder tasks just be less motivating intuitively?
Well, some research suggests that our belief in our ability to handle the difficulty might be more important than the perceived difficulty itself.
Ah, okay.
If someone feels competent, a challenging task might even be more motivating. It's when the difficulty feels like it outweighs our perceived ability. That's when it becomes demotivating.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not just what's going on inside our heads, right? Our past experiences and the people around us, they have an impact too.
Precisely. The model also points to the influence of how we interpret our past performance. Was that result to a triumph or a disappointment in our eyes?
Right.
And also how we pick up on the attitudes and expectations of important people in our lives, family, teachers. These external cues can really shape our broader goals and those task-specific beliefs we were just talking about.
Now, when we talk about subjective task value, it's not just one monolithic thing, is it? Eccles and her colleagues, they really broke it down into some interesting components.
Yes, they proposed 4 key ingredients that contribute to the subjective value we place on a task.
Okay.
The first is what they call attainment value. Basically, how important it is to us personally to do well on that particular task.
Right, the outcome.
Then there's intrinsic value. That's the enjoyment or satisfaction we get from actually doing the task itself. This really ties into, intrinsic motivation, doing things because they're interesting or feel good.
Makes perfect sense. So attainment is about the outcome, Intrinsic is about the feeling during the process. What are the other two pieces?
The third is utility value.
Hmm.
This is all about how useful the task is for our future plans or goals.
The practical side.
Exactly. Like someone might not enjoy statistics, but they see its utility for their career.
Mhm.
Finally, there's cost. And this includes what we have to give up to do the task, other things we could be doing, time, energy.
Opportunity cost.
Yeah, and also the effort we anticipate needing to put in. So it's not just can I do it, but is it important to me? Do I enjoy it? Does it help me later? And what does it cost me? It's a much richer picture.
It really is. That cost isn't just about time, is it?
Yeah.
What kind of, emotional or social costs might kids consider?
That's a key point. Absolutely. For a child, cost could involve missing out on playtime with friends, right? Or the anxiety of potentially failing publicly.
Yeah.
Or even the social cost of excelling in something their peer group doesn't really value. These less tangible costs can definitely factor into their motivation.
So it's a really holistic view. Now, how do researchers actually get a handle on measuring these things? I remember seeing a table in one of the sources with some example questions.
Exactly. To get a sense of competence beliefs, you might ask something direct like, how good at math are you? Or have them compare their abilities to classmates. Intrinsic value. Maybe asked how much they enjoy doing math activities. Attainment value could be gauged by asking how important being good at math is to them personally.
Utility value questions might focus on how useful they think math will be for their future. And for expectancy for success, it's about their beliefs about future performance, like how well do you expect to do on your next math test?
That really helps solidify these concepts. Now, you mentioned expectancy for success is about beliefs regarding future performance. How does that relate to Bandura's concept of self-efficacy? That's a really well-known idea.
That's a really important distinction to make. Yes, the expectancy value model primarily focuses on efficacy expectations, which align very closely with Bandura's self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to successfully perform a specific task or achieve a particular outcome.
Okay.
So self-efficacy, as Bandura defined it, is really about that can I do it part,
Right.
which fits neatly into the expectancy piece of this larger expectancy value puzzle.
Right.
However, the expectancy value model goes a step further by systematically taking into account the influence of our subjective values on achievement behaviors. Bandua's work primarily focused on how those can-I-do-it beliefs drive action.
I see. While Bandura acknowledges values play a role, they aren't a formal integrated component of his model like they are in expectancy value theory.
Okay. And what about competence beliefs?
Yeah.
Those seem related to expectancy, but maybe operate at a slightly broader level.
Precisely. Competence beliefs are more general evaluations of our overall ability in different areas or domains.
Like, I'm a math person.
Exactly. Whereas expectancies for success are more task-specific, your belief about how well you'll do on this specific upcoming task. Like your competence belief is, I'm generally good at cooking. Your expectancy for success is, I think I'll nail this specific recipe tonight.
Got it. So you might feel generally competent in science, but your expectancy for a tough physics exam might be lower if that topic is tricky for you.
Exactly right.
Okay, so we've established the basic framework. Now, the developmental aspect is really key here. How do these beliefs and values, evolve and change as we grow? The source mentions this idea of differentiation quite a bit.
Yes, differentiation is really crucial for understanding how our beliefs evolve. Even in early elementary school, kids start to differentiate their competence beliefs across different domains, academic areas like reading and math, social stuff, physical activities.
Even that early.
Yeah. So a first grader might see themselves as really good at reading, but maybe not so great at sports. Another kid might have the opposite view. This separation, this specialization of self-perceived abilities becomes more pronounced as they go through school.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So young kids already have this nuanced view. But the source also mentioned that within a specific domain, like math, competence beliefs and expectancies for success aren't really empirically distinct for kids from 1st through 12th grade. What's going on there?
That's right. When you zoom in on one subject like math, a child's general feeling about how good they are at it tends to be very closely tied to their expectation of how well they'll do on a math test. They haven't yet developed the cognitive ability to really separate those two in a meaningful way within that single subject. Their overall sense of math ability and their anticipation of success in math are still quite intertwined.
But they do differentiate between their competence expectancy beliefs and their subjective values, even as early as first grade. That seems like a pretty fundamental finding for the theory.
It is a key finding. It suggests even very young children can distinguish between what they believe they're capable of in, say, math or reading, and how much they actually value or find importance in those same areas.
So can I do it and
But,
do I care
huh,
are separate tracks early on.
exactly. This early separation provides important support for the basic structure of the expectancy value model right from the start of their school journey.
And what about those different components of subjective value: interest, utility, importance, cost? When do those start to become distinct factors in a child's mind?
Research suggests that in the early elementary years, interest in a task and a more general sense of its utility and importance tend to emerge as the main drivers of value. It isn't until around fifth grade, typically, that you see a clear differentiation of attainment value, how important it is to do well, intrinsic value, the enjoyment, and utility value, future usefulness, as separate components kids can articulate and weigh differently.
Interesting. And cost.
The cost component, while theoretically important, hasn't been studied quite as much from a developmental perspective in terms of when kids explicitly recognize and factor in those trade-offs.
So as we mature, our perceptions of both abilities and the value of activities become more fine-grained. Now, what about the overall level of these beliefs and values? Do we tend to get more or less confident as we go through school? The source mentioned these mean level changes.
Yeah, this is where we often see some, well, potentially concerning trends from an educational viewpoint. Across elementary and middle school, there's a general pattern of decline in children's competence beliefs in many academic areas.
A decline.
Yeah. For example, a first grader might have a very optimistic view of their reading ability, maybe even overestimating it compared to older kids. But as they get more feedback, engage in more social comparison with peers, their self-assessments tend to become more aligned with actual performance. This often leads to lower average self-readings as they move up through the grades.
That makes sense. The initial, maybe unrealistic optimism gives way to more reality checks.
Yeah.
What about expectancies for success? Do we generally become less optimistic about future performance too?
Initially, young children's expectancies are often quite high, sometimes even if they've failed repeatedly. They have this sort of inherent optimism.
Mm-hmm.
But as they get older, their expectancies become much more closely tied to their actual past performance. Success boosts expectations, failure lowers them, they become more sensitive to their track record.
Right.
There's an interesting debate, though. Is that early optimism just wishful thinking? Or maybe it's somewhat realistic because skills develop so rapidly then.
Yeah.
And newer research suggests even preschoolers do react to failure in ways that might influence future expectations, maybe more than we thought.
And what about our values? Do we tend to care less about academic tasks as we get older? It feels like fostering a love of learning is a constant challenge.
The research generally points to a decline, yeah. A decline in how much children value certain academic tasks, like reading for fun or learning an instrument, as they go through school.
That's a shame.
Interestingly, the value they place on sports or social activities might actually increase during these years. Even beliefs about the usefulness and importance of academic subjects can decrease.
Even usefulness. Wow.
Yeah, like math might seem more valuable in late elementary than in high school for some kids, while the reverse might be true for English. And that transition to junior high often seems like a particularly vulnerable time, with declines in both importance and enjoyment reported for subjects like math and English.
That sounds like that motivational slump often tied to adolescence.
Mm-hmm.
What are the main reasons behind these negative shifts in academic beliefs and values?
There are a couple of key explanations researchers point to. One is cognitive maturity kids get better at understanding evaluative feedback.
Right. Grades, comments.
Exactly. And they engage in more sophisticated social comparison, assessing their abilities relative to others. This can lead to more accurate, but sometimes less positive self-assessments.
Okay.
The other major factor is often changes in the school environment itself, especially during transitions to middle and high school.
How so?
Well, these environments often put a greater emphasis on evaluation, grades, competition. For some students, this can negatively impact their achievement beliefs and intrinsic motivation. Grading practices, classroom structure, teacher expectations, they all can play a significant role.
So it's both internal psychological changes and the external context. Now, the source also talked about how kids' fundamental understanding of concepts like ability itself changes, these changes in conceptions.
Yes, this refers to how kids think about core achievement ideas. John Nichols's work is really influential here. He proposed a sequence of 4 levels describing how kids understand the relationship between effort, ability, and performance.
Okay, level 1.
Level 1, around 5 or 6 years old, they don't really differentiate these concepts clearly. Trying hard means you're good, and performance is just a result of effort.
Simple enough.
Level 2, ages 7 to 9, they start seeing effort as the main cause, but also recognize effort and ability are distinct factors.
Ah, starting to separate them.
Level 3, ages 9 to 12, this differentiation becomes more consistent, but maybe not always applied.
Get there.
Finally, level 4, around 10 to 13, they typically develop a more mature understanding of ability as a relatively stable underlying capacity.
Ability is capacity.
Yeah, basically, kids go from thinking trying hard equals being good to realizing some people might just have a knack for things, which can really impact how they see their own potential.
That idea of ability as capacity, seeing ability as somewhat fixed, sounds like it echoes Carol Dweck's work on fixed versus growth mindsets, doesn't it?
There are definitely strong parallels. Dweck's entity view of intelligence, intelligence as stable, unchangeable, is very similar to Nichols's ability as capacity.
Right, versus the incremental view or growth mindset.
Exactly, where intelligence is malleable, improvable through effort. Now, Nichols argued for distinguishing between ability and intelligence as constructs, but his idea of ability as a stable capacity aligns closely with Dweck's entity theory.
Well, the implication is,
Both perspectives suggest that believing ability or intelligence is fixed can have significant negative motivational consequences, making people more likely to avoid challenges, fear failure, see effort as a sign of low ability.
it seems understanding how kids think about ability at this fundamental level has really big implications. What about their understanding of subjective task value? Does that also evolve?
That's an area with relatively less developmental research compared to competence beliefs. But Wigfield and Eccles suggested that in early elementary, a child's initial valuing of a task might be largely driven by intrinsic interest.
Just finding it fun.
Yeah, choosing activities primarily because they're enjoyable, with less thought for future utility or long-term importance.
Okay.
Interestingly, initial interest might not be strongly linked to how well a child actually performs at it. But research suggests this connection between interest and performance tends to strengthen as kids move through elementary school.
But it's complex, right? Like those seductive details.
Exactly. That research highlights how adding interesting but irrelevant info can sometimes hinder comprehension. It underscores that just making things fun isn't enough. The core ideas still need engaging presentation.
A great reminder. Surface-level fun doesn't guarantee deep learning or long-term motivation. Okay, let's shift slightly. How do all these different beliefs and values actually relate to each other?
Okay. One fundamental prediction of expectancy-value theory is a positive link between competence beliefs and expectancies for success in related tasks.
Make sense? Feel good at it, expect to do well.
And research consistently supports this. If you believe you're generally good at something, you're much more likely to expect success on specific tasks in that area. And as kids' competence beliefs become more grounded in actual performance over time, this relationship likely gets even stronger.
Okay. What about the link between competence beliefs and subjective values? Do we tend to value the things we think we're good at?
Generally, yes. Research finds a positive correlation between competence expectancy beliefs and the subjective value individuals place on tasks.
Which contrasts with some older ideas.
Right, like Atkinson's idea that we might value challenging things more. The expectancy value framework expects this positive link to increase with age, as kids become more likely to value activities where they experience success and feel competent.
And how do competence beliefs relate to the specific value components, interest, utility, importance?
Initially, the strongest link seems to be between competence beliefs and intrinsic interest. Young kids are likely more interested in activities they feel good at.
Enjoyment follows competence.
Often, yes. As they mature and think more about future goals, the links between competence beliefs and perceived importance and utility are also expected to grow stronger.
But not always perfectly aligned.
Definitely not. You can be competent but not interested, or very interested despite not feeling highly competent.
Now, achievement goals also came up. It seems like Eccles and colleagues use a broader definition than some others. Can you clarify those perspectives?
Absolutely. Eccles et al. Tend to define achievement goals quite broadly. They encompass long-term aspirations like career plans, but also general desires to align with certain behavioral standards or social roles like gender roles in certain fields.
Big picture goals.
Yeah. In contrast, many other researchers focus on more specific, situation-dependent goals kids adopt in particular achievement settings, like their immediate goals for performance or learning on a specific task.
So Eccles is looking at overarching aims, others at immediate task goals.
Pretty much.
You mentioned Nichols and Dweck before regarding conceptions of ability. How do their ideas about achievement goals fit in here?
Good question. Nichols distinguishes between ego-involved goals, outperforming others, avoiding looking incompetent, and task-involved goals, personal mastery, improving competence, intrinsic satisfaction. Dweck uses a similar framework. Performance goals, like ego-involved, and learning goals, like task-involved. Ames talks about performance versus mastery goals.
Similar concepts, different names.
Right, and Nichols found these two orientations, focusing on others versus personal growth, can be differentiated even in second graders.
Wow, that early. Now, there seems to be some debate on how competence beliefs relate to these goal types.
Yes, differing views. Dweck argues that a fixed view of intelligence, entity theory, leads to performance goals needing to prove existing ability.
Okay.
Nichols, based on his research, argued goal orientation isn't necessarily directly related to perceived ability. His studies didn't show a strong correlation between perceived competence and goal type adopted.
Conflicting findings.
Or maybe different focuses. Dweck and Elliott also suggested the situation itself influences which goal, performance, or learning is prioritized.
So context matters.
Right, and a potential integration. Maybe Eccles et al. Broader goals influence general values and expectancies, which then shape the more specific situational goals that Dweck and Nichols study.
That sounds like a plausible way to connect the levels. Big picture influences the immediate approach. And how do these different goal types relate to valuing school itself?
Nichols suggests ego-driven students might value school as a place to show superiority. Task-oriented students value the intrinsic aspects, interest, effort, understanding.
Makes sense.
In expectancy value terms, you could maybe link ego goals more to utility value, school as a means to appear competent, and task goals more to intrinsic value, enjoyment of learning.
Okay, we've explored the theory's components, development, relationships, and goals. Now, the bottom line. How does all this connect to actual achievement behaviors, performance, and choices?
Right. Research consistently shows the link between competence expectancy beliefs and actual performance gets stronger with age, as self-assessments get more accurate.
Belief predicts outcome better over time.
Exactly. And longitudinal studies by Eccles and colleagues are really insightful here. They show students' competence beliefs in math or English significantly predict subsequent grades, even controlling for prior performance.
So believing you're good really does contribute to better grades.
It seems so. But there's more to it than just belief.
Right, the value piece.
Absolutely. Subjective task values are crucial, maybe even more so for long-term engagement and choices. Research shows how much a student values math is a stronger predictor of intending to take more math and actually enrolling in advanced math than just their belief in their math ability.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. Expectancies might predict immediate grades better, but values seem to drive longer-term academic decisions. And this pattern holds for both boys and girls.
Belief gets you through the test. Value keeps you in the subject. What about younger kids? What drives their choices before utility and long-term goals are big factors?
For younger children, it's generally thought intrinsic interest is the strongest driver. They choose activities mainly because they enjoy them.
Makes sense.
As they get older, importance and utility likely become more influential. For instance, in junior high, enjoyment of math might be key for intending to continue. By high school, both interest and perceived usefulness for the future might be equally important for choosing advanced courses.
And how might those different conceptions of ability, fixed versus malleable, play into this?
It's likely kids with a fixed view of ability might show a stronger, more direct link between competence, beliefs, and performance. If they think they lack ability, they might underperform or give up easily.
Right.
Whereas kids who believe effort improves ability might see effort in valuing the task as stronger predictors of success. They might be more persistent when things get tough.
So fundamental beliefs about ability shape how other beliefs and values translate into action. Okay, we've covered a huge amount. What are the key overall implications of this research on expectancy value theory, especially for understanding development?
Well, A main takeaway is that the basic model focusing on both capability beliefs and value seems relevant even in early elementary grades, because kids differentiate competence beliefs and develop distinct value orientations fairly early.
The core structure holds up early on.
Yeah, but it's important to remember the strength and nature of the links between components likely evolve and get more complex with age.
It's not static.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And while the model often looks linear beliefs influence values, influence behavior, the reality is probably more reciprocal, more interactive, and increasingly integrated system over time, not just a simple chain reaction.
Like a web, not just a line.
Exactly. Longitudinal research tracking kids over time is really crucial for fully understanding these developmental causal pathways.
So to bring it all together for you, our listener,
Hmm.
achievement motivation is, well, really dynamic and complex. It's not just about how capable we think we are, but it's deeply intertwined with how much we value potential success. And these beliefs and values aren't static. They change significantly through childhood and adolescence. They become more differentiated, playing an increasingly powerful role in our choices and performance. Understanding these shifts can give us incredibly valuable insights into what drives us and others.
Yeah, and this raises a really important question for you to consider now. Reflecting on your own experiences, how have your perceptions of your abilities and the value you assign to different activities changed over your life?
Hmm.
Thinking through this expectancy value lens, what past choices or current pursuits might look different now? And maybe most importantly, how might this understanding inform your approach to new challenges or learning opportunities going forward?
Definitely a lot to ponder, and certainly some avenues for future deep dives. Thanks so much for joining us today as we unpacked the expectancy-value theory of achievement motivation. We really hope this offered a new perspective on what drives us to achieve.